I still remember the night the truth knocked on my door. When I opened the door, there was a woman I had never met, with children clinging to her side, and with a voice trembling but sharp, she spoke words that split my soul in two. "Your husband is my husband too." That moment shattered the ground beneath me. Before I tell you what came after, I ask you, please stay with me, subscribe, share my story so that the lessons carved into my life may reach someone before they fall into the same darkness I did. The walls of my home, the years of trust, the vows whispered in the dark, all of it crumbled into dust. I had lived beside a stranger, a man who carried secrets in his pockets like coins, spending lies freely while I held on to love. My heart cracked in silence, but my story did not end there. In the early years of our marriage, I believed I had found my forever. He was gentle then, or at least he knew how to appear so. His smile could soften any room, his hands were steady, his words laced with promises of a life that would be safe, whole, and unbroken. I clung to those promises, not out of desperation, but out of love. For I was a young bride, eager to build a home, eager to believe in the story we were writing together. Our home was small, but it was filled with warmth. I cooked meals with laughter spilling out of the windows. We planted flowers by the porch, and in those days he would kneel beside me, dirt on his hands, dreams in his eyes. Nights were quiet but tender. He would hold me, whispering plans for the years ahead, children, a bigger house, a future we could both be proud of. And so when the small lies began, I brushed them aside. A late meeting at work, a forgotten phone call, unexplained hours when he could not be reached. My heart, loyal and blind, refused to suspect. I told myself this is what men do when they are busy, when they are tired, when they are building a life for us. I silenced the whispers in my own mind because love can make us deaf to truth. But shadows do not remain shadows forever. They grow, stretching across the walls until they swallow the light. I began to notice the perfume on his shirt that was not mine. The missed dinners became more frequent, the excuses thinner. I would watch him from across the table, his eyes distant even as his hands held the spoon, and in those silences, I felt a chill that no blanket could warm. One night he came home late, his face pale, his shirt wrinkled. When I asked where he had been, he offered a laugh that did not reach his eyes. "Just work," he said, but I knew. Deep inside, something within me stirred, something I had buried beneath trust and hope. It was the first crack in the glass, the first sign that the man I loved was not the man I thought he was. I remember sitting alone after he had gone to bed, the house heavy with silence. I traced the rim of my teacup, staring at the steam rising and fading into the night. Questions clawed at my mind. Was I not enough? Had love slipped through my fingers without me noticing? Or had it never been mine to begin with? Still, I stayed silent, because sometimes silence feels safer than truth. Sometimes we cling to the illusion because we fear the storm that comes with reality. And so I folded my pain into the corners of my heart and prayed that I was wrong. But deep down, I already knew the man I had trusted was carrying shadows far darker than I was ready to face. And those shadows were about to step through my door. The night she appeared at my door is burned into my memory with cruel precision. The woman's face was weary, lined with years I did not share, yet her eyes held a truth that pierced me instantly. Beside her stood 2 children, young, fragile, carrying the weight of innocence that had been born from betrayal. Her words struck me harder than any storm. "Your husband is my husband too." At first I could not breathe. The air turned thick, the ground tilted beneath me. My mind refused to understand, and yet my heart recognized the truth immediately. All the missing hours, the distant stares, the laughter that no longer belonged to me, it all came rushing back in a flood that drowned me where I stood. I wanted to slam the door. I wanted to scream at her, to call her a liar, but the look in her eyes stopped me. It was not the look of a woman seeking to destroy. It was the look of someone already destroyed. She had not come to gloat nor to fight. She had come because lies can only be carried for so long before they collapse under their own weight. Behind me, the walls of my home seemed to close in. The pictures of my children on the mantel, the smell of soup on the stove, the sound of my own heart breaking inside my chest. All of it blended into a blur of betrayal. My hands trembled as I asked her to leave, my voice shaking, my pride bleeding. But as the door shut between us, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. When he returned that night, I could not look at him. His footsteps echoed in the hall, each step a reminder of the stranger I had welcomed into my life. When I finally confronted him, his silence was louder than any confession. His eyes dropped, his lips pressed into a thin line, and in that moment I knew I did not need his words. His silence told me everything. For days I moved through the house like a ghost. I cooked, I cleaned, I cared for the children, but inside I was hollow. My reflection in the mirror was unrecognizable. My eyes carried shadows. My smile had vanished. At night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking questions that had no answers. How long had this secret family existed? How many birthdays had he missed with them while pretending to work late for us? How many lies had I swallowed, thinking they were truth? The betrayal was not only in his actions, it was in the years he had stolen from me, the trust he had poisoned, the love he had buried beneath deceit. And yet, even in my anger, I felt a deeper sorrow, not only for myself, but for the children, for mine, who would grow up with the knowledge of their father's betrayal, for hers, who would live in the shadow of a stolen love, and for all of us, bound together by the sins of one man. I stood in the ruins of my marriage, surrounded by walls that no longer felt like home. And I asked myself, how does a woman rebuild when the very foundation of her life has been ripped away? The answer, I would discover, would not come easily. It would demand strength I did not know I possessed, and it would begin with letting go of the man who had chosen betrayal over love. The years that followed were the hardest I have ever lived. Betrayal does not end with the moment of discovery. It lingers like smoke after a fire, seeping into every corner of your life. Each day I woke with the weight of it pressing down on me, and each night I lay in bed listening to the silence where love once lived. For a while I tried to hold on. I tried to pretend for the children's sake that their father was still the man I had once believed in. But children are not blind, and even silence tells its story. They saw the way I avoided his touch, the way his eyes never lingered on me, the way our dinners grew quieter with every passing night. They knew something had broken, even if they did not yet have the words to name it. Neighbours began to whisper. Some pitied me, others judged me. A few dared to speak it aloud. She should have known, men like him cannot be trusted. Their words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they reduced my life to a rumour, my pain to a spectacle. I carried myself with dignity, my head held high, but inside I felt like a house with no walls, exposed to every cruel wind. Eventually, he stopped pretending. He spent less time at home, more time with the other family he had built. The children grew used to his absences. They stopped waiting at the window, stopped asking when he would return. It was as if they too had learned that the man they called father belonged to another life. and I, left alone in the ruins of our marriage, had no choice but to gather what remained of my strength. There were nights I cried until my body ached, nights I begged God to give me an answer, to take away the bitterness that had taken root in my heart. And in those quiet prayers I began to understand something. Sometimes God does not remove the storm, but He teaches us how to stand in the rain. I could not change what my husband had done. I could not undo the years of lies, but I could choose how to live with the truth. I poured myself into my children. I became both mother and father, protector and provider. I taught them the value of honesty, the strength of loyalty, the sacredness of keeping your word. For I wanted them to know that betrayal was not the legacy of our family. It was his sin, not ours. As time passed, I noticed the change in him too. The excitement he once carried when sneaking away to his other life began to fade. His steps grew slower, his laughter less frequent. I saw the lines etching deeper into his face, the weariness in his eyes. Perhaps he thought 2 families would bring him joy, but instead it had drained him, left him torn and restless, belonging fully to no one. I remember one evening, years later, when he returned unexpectedly. He stood in the doorway, older now, shoulders bent beneath the weight of his choices. His eyes searched mine, but I gave him nothing. I thought I would be happy, he said quietly, almost to himself. But all I've done is destroy what was once whole. His voice trembled, and for a moment I almost saw the man I had once loved. But only for a moment, because the truth was that man had died the day he chose betrayal. I listened, but I did not comfort him. I had no comfort left to give. I had rebuilt my strength on the ashes of his lies, and I would not let pity bind me to him again. He left that night, and though I did not know it then, it would be many years before I heard his voice again. The chapter of my life with him as my husband had ended, but the story of what betrayal leaves behind, that had only just begun. Time has a way of revealing truths we once thought could be hidden forever. My husband's betrayal carved wounds in me that never fully healed, but it also gave me eyes that could see beyond illusions. Life marched forward, children grew into adults, and I learned to live with the scars of my past. But betrayal has its own harvest, and sooner or later, every seed sown in lies comes back to the one who planted it. I thought I had seen the worst pain life could hand me, but a different ache awaited me years later. Not from my husband, but from the son I once held closest to my heart. He had grown into a man with ambition burning in his eyes, restless, always searching for more. Perhaps it was the shadow of his father's choices, or perhaps it was his own hunger, but somewhere along the way, he forgot the lessons I had tried so desperately to give him. One day, with no warning, he betrayed me in a way I never imagined possible. He sold our family home, the last piece of ground where my memories lived, without telling me. I discovered the truth not from his lips, but from strangers who knocked at my door, holding papers with his name signed at the bottom. Strangers who said this house, my house, no longer belonged to me. That day I felt my world crumble all over again. The walls seemed to tilt, the ground beneath me trembled. Betrayal once more stood in front of me, but this time it did not wear the face of my husband. It wore the face of my own blood, my own child. And I asked myself, how could a son wound his mother in this way? The years that followed were not easy for him. At first he believed he had won, money in his hands, new opportunities to chase, but money earned from betrayal does not last. It slips through fingers like sand. He made choices that pulled him further and further away from peace, until even wealth could not shield him from loneliness. 20 years have passed since that day, and now when I see him, he is a man hollowed by regret. The world took what he thought it had promised him, and left him with nothing but memories of what he had destroyed. His children do not trust him. His own home does not carry warmth. And in the silence of his nights, he is haunted not by strangers, but by the mother he betrayed. I do not speak these words with anger anymore. Time has softened my rage, though it has not erased the hurt. Instead, I speak with sorrow and with a lesson I want the world to remember. Betrayal does not only wound the one who receives it, it corrodes the soul of the one who commits it. It poisons their joy, darkens their legacy, and leaves them wandering through life as shadows of who they could have been. I still live, though not in the house my husband built, nor in the home my son sold. I live in a small place filled with memories I choose to protect. Photographs of the children before life hardened them. Letters from friends who stood by me when others turned away. A garden where I plant flowers each spring, reminding myself that beauty can still rise from broken ground. If there is one truth my life has taught me, it is this. Love is the only treasure worth keeping. Gold fades, houses crumble, secrets unravel, but love, when it is honest, when it is loyal, outlives us all. So if you hear my voice, let my story be your mirror. Do not let greed guide your steps. Do not let lies steal your soul. For betrayal may bring gain for a moment, but it will steal your peace for a lifetime. And as for me, I remain a mother with scars that tell stories. A woman who has seen love turn to ashes, yet still plants flowers in the soil of her sorrow. I forgive, but I do not forget. I endure, but I do not bend. And I leave behind this truth. Betrayal may break a heart, but it also breaks the betrayer.